Okay, well, here we go, you guys. It's Sunday night, Global Strangeness, the best time of the week, every week. We are myself, Deborah, Scott, and the MIA Jeremy, who are three strangers who came together with a love of everything spooky, weird, paranormal, folklore, you name it, we dive into it. And this week, our co-host Jeremy, he's MIA for another few weeks. And so we got a couple of guys on here and they have got big shoes to fill. They're going to be our fake Jeremys, 1 and 2. So I'm just going to let you guys introduce yourselves here. This week, first of all, we're all talking about some hauntings. So we're just going to share a couple haunted stories, each of us. And yeah, let's get going. So Michael, why don't we start with you? Introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, your socials, that type of thing.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Michael Julian here. I have a Facebook page called The Haunted Peninsula, and I principally deal with hauntings and haunted things in the state of Florida. You know, the state of Florida can be pretty scary, and we've got a lot of stories about hauntings in the state of Florida. I live near St. Petersburg, and of course we have the obligatory tourist ghost tour where you can go around and hear scary stories, and afterwards, which is very typical of Florida, you go drinking. So yep, so that's a little bit of my background. I wanted to thank you and Scott for inviting me to your wonderful podcast today. I really look forward to this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully do quite a few more. You stick around.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
And Bruce, on to you. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into all this too.
Well, my name is Bruce Burnett, and I am involved with the Tombstone Paracon. I live in Tombstone, Arizona, which is arguably one of the most haunted cities, at least in America, for sure. I can literally see the Birdcage Theater from my house. I live up on the hill above Tombstone. I got involved with running Paracons this last year. I'll be working on the Tombstone Paracon for next April and the Tucson Paracon for next July. And I just happened to be scrolling through some pages and I saw many posts by you guys. Actually, I saw posts on a number of pages where you were looking for people to possibly involved, and I figured we'll give it a shot. We'll see how well we do. I have a lot of podcasting experience. As I told you guys before, I had a recovery podcast where we talked about, not getting loaded anymore. That's why if you guys drink, I brought 12 ounces of Coke with me because I'm from the 80s. We had to have Coke in the 80s, and I still got Coke. But yeah, and I'm prepared to talk about anything you guys want to talk about. We got tons of haunted locations here in Tombstone.
Fantastic.
And then just for both of you guys to know, when we started this, there was, I don't know how many people. We were in a group, right, of like 12 to 18 people.
15, something like that. Yeah.
And then there were 4 of us that actually went through with it. I think another person actually did jump in and left immediately. And then it was Jeremy, Deborah, and I. And
somehow we stuck for over a year now. We had our 1-year anniversary, and we are total strangers. I'm from Canada. They're both in different parts of the US, and we just get together and have a good old bullshit about hauntings and spooky stuff and cryptids and all of that stuff. So
sweet.
And yeah, no, we've by accident interviewed some people with Discovery Channel shows, and last year we did a couple different Christmas things. We worked with Pixelated Paranormal, and then the Weird Christmas podcast. So been a lot of fun.
And you meet the coolest people. The coolest people are into this, these discussions. You get into such some pretty interesting discussions and pretty interesting people. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So, well, with that being said, do we want to jump into some haunted stories? Did you guys have any individual ones that you can think of that you wanted to share with us about buildings and particular stories about anything?
Sure. I mean, unless Michael wants to go first, that's fine as
No,
well.
by all means, Bruce, the floor is yours.
So, like I said, I do live in Tombstone, Arizona. It's like 1,200 people. It's the site of the famous OK Corral gunfight. It has some buildings in town that make top 10 lists, like the Birdcage Theater. But I'm here to tell you, the Birdcage Theater is not the granddaddy of hauntings. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good, but we have, Boot Hill Graveyard also has a ton of activity. A place called Shefflin Hall doesn't really ever get investigated, but we've had some teams that work with the Paracon that were in there, and that was an experience. I might have mentioned this to the other guys before, but we were having events in town where we invited paranormal teams to come and be involved with the events. And as a thank you to them, we did both a nighttime investigation of Boot Hill Graveyard and one of Shefflin Hall. And I had met one of these teams before. I had not met the other team. And the other team that I hadn't met was down in the basement, and I was up on the main floor. It's a very old building. It was built in 1881, and it's the largest standing adobe structure in the United States. And it's just been there forever, survived both the fires that Tombstone had back in the 1880s. And girl comes up from the basement, and who I hadn't met before, and she introduced herself, and she says, we were talking to these spirits down there. And I said, oh, okay. And she goes, well, we were speaking with a young, like maybe an 8-year-old, 9-year-old girl. And I'm like, oh, that would be Emma. Emma is well known for, weirdly enough, talking at length. She'll answer with full sentences. She'll talk smack about people in the room. I mean, she's very precocious. It's almost like talking to someone. I've never seen anything like it before. And she goes, but we couldn't talk to the other spirit. And I didn't know who she would be talking about. She goes, well, they kept saying to say hi to Bruce. And I'm like, oh, my name's Bruce. And they're like, oh, and the girl without a beat just says, oh, Emma said to say hi to you. And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And Shefflin Hall has had just every time of day that I've been in there. I've been in there in the mornings. There's stuff. I've been in there in the afternoons and the evenings. I used to work with a repertory company that was in Tombstone. And we'd be down in the green room downstairs, and you would hear footsteps, boots across the stage when there was absolutely no one up there. And I have a wife that's 1,000% skeptic. And she's like, oh, well, that was a mouse. And I'm like, yeah, a mouse in cowboy boots, because it was clearly cowboy boots walking across the stage. And, and believe me, I could run the entire thing with tons of different haunted things from the town here. But I'll let someone else give a story as well.
I think
Well, thanks.
first
That's
off,
pretty creepy.
Deborah, I
It was
think you need to get a hat.
I need to get a hat.
Yeah,
I
you're the
guess
only
you're
one
right.
without a damn hat. What the hell?
One
is
of these
going
things
on?
is not like the others in a couple different ways, I
Jesus.
think.
Yeah, this is my outlaw hat.
Nice.
I do have a question for Bruce. When you say that the spirit was talking or conversing with these guests, how was that talking happening? How was that working? How was that manifest?
Spirit box. And what makes that especially strange, the way Spirit Box goes through channels, you'll get full and complete sentences, and it's the craziest thing I've ever seen, because, I've kind of been in the paranormal since I was a teenager. I had an event that I could tell you guys about later if you want to hear about it. But I have watched a zillion shows and been on investigations and things. And usually Spirit Box is not that clear. and B, short responses. And there was a time we were in Shefflin Hall, and there was a person that was there that had some strange happenings around town. And in the middle of talking with her, he goes to ask a question, and Emma says Jeff, who is the guy that's running the spirit box, and Jeff had never given his name, and he's like, oh. And she goes, you know, that other guy, he lies. And I mean, it was like that. It was like a long sentence that was really easy to hear. And we were just taken aback. It was just completely unusual for us.
That is pretty interesting to have full-on sentences like that, because it's usually pretty, sketchy little one word,
Well, I always love,
answers. That's cool.
I always love ghost shows when they say, you can clearly hear him say blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't clearly hear anything. But with Emma, she's pretty damn clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, Bruce, what do you attribute Emma being so clear to? Just because she's really there, or your spirit box is better? What do you think makes it work that well?
It wasn't my spirit box, so I can't speak to the equipment, but I've heard similar things on a number of different pieces of equipment, a number of different spirit boxes. So we've had a number of different people in there. And when you hear this full-on commentary that comes back, you will hear complete sentences, and it could be completely different people with completely different pieces of equipment. So it's pretty exciting when it happens, and it's kind of a good time to watch other people experience it, because they're like, oh my God, she said a whole sentence. We're like, oh yeah, she does that all the time. And they're like, oh, that's creepy. And I'm like, well, it's kind of, the Holy Grail. It's kind of what you want. It's what you want and you never usually get. So, I mean, we'd say she's also what we call a traveling entity, because she doesn't just show up at Shefflin Hall. She has been, and so there's guys buried in Boot Hill called the Brady brothers. They were a pair of brothers, like 11 or 12 or 10 or 11 years old, that died, one trying to save the other in the San Pedro River during monsoon season. So the river was running really high. And they're pretty chatty at Boot Hill as well. And Emma has no problem just busting right in on their conversation and telling them to be quiet because she wants to talk. When I say precocious, she's pretty precocious. She definitely puts herself out there, and she doesn't have any problem talking to anybody. Anybody that goes in there will get, at either, well, not always at Boot Hill, but at Shefflin Hall, no matter who you are always going to get responses from Emma. And we don't even know that Emma's her real name, but that's what she seems to answer to. So that's what we go with.
Cool. That'd be cool, actually, if you could get her to say who she was, how she died, like some things that you can actually investigate and verify, right? That'd be really neat, since she's
yeah.
I think you should set up card games in there and
right?
have the spirit box and the headphones. Get it going, son.
Say, Emma, look over his shoulder. What's his hand? I can make some extra money.
That would fit
That would be
Tombstone,
fantastic.
too.
Yeah. Absolutely. So who else has got a good one?
Well, I'm gonna talk about I have not been to this place in person myself, but I am the token Canadian here, so I like to do Canadian stories, and this is the courthouse in Saskatchewan, and I like it because there's a lot of different people have had different experiences with this old courthouse. Scott, it's the last picture that I sent you. So this is the Robert Courthouse, and
Okay.
it's a pretty cool building. So it was an actual courthouse at one time. It actually it's not a courthouse anymore. They closed it in 1996, and it houses the municipal offices and a museum and library and courtroom, gallery and stuff like that. And actually in my city, that's exactly what we have, an old courthouse like that too. It's my favorite building in the whole city. But this one is pretty haunted, and there's like I said, a lot of different activity going on in there. And there was a one of the most notorious cases that was believed to be at the heart of these hauntings. It dates back to 1931, and it was a murder trial, and it was defended by John G. Diefenbacher, who's like a future Prime Minister of Canada. And some people do believe that all these hauntings have something to do with, there was an old skull that was locked in the basement evidence room from that particular trial. They had the skull of the victim, and so they think that a lot of the hauntings are happening because of that. So it's one of these places. It too has a ghost tour, like all of these old buildings seem to end up having the tour groups go through, just kind of for a fun thing. But when was it? There was a group going through, and it had a bunch of school kids, and they were taking them through a tour on here, and they see this half man walking up the stairs, and then he just disappeared and freaked the F out of the little kids and everybody. Like, it was pretty clear they all saw it. So it's a pretty, scary experience for all of them. And then there was a judge in there, and he had served prior to the courthouse closing, and he shared a ton of stories. He actually wrote a book about all his experiences in there. And he said you could just feel something's not right in the building always. Like, it's just always had that kind of a feeling. And he said one of his judge friends stayed in the courthouse with his wife during a court case. And during that night, so they stayed overnight, like they actually stayed in the building. The door handle was shaking as though somebody was trying to get in. And the judge and his wife got up and got the heck out of there, and they just never stayed there again. And at one point, 2 firemen went up to the attic, and they were convinced they heard footsteps while they were up in there. And those 2 same firemen said that they got an uncomfortable feeling walking up the back stairwell. And one watched the hairs on the other's arm stand straight up, which, come on, did he really see that? I don't know. But anyways, they were pretty spooked out. And then in 2017, so getting closer here, during a Halloween night of haunted tours, one elevator battery and backup battery quit. And it's unusual for both of them to quit at the same time. But like a lot of haunted places, phones drain, batteries drain or whatever. So anyways, the elevator, both of them quit. And experts agree that in order for a spirit to manifest itself or make physical contact or move things, they do need energy, like we all know here. And so that's why the draining of the batteries would happen. And there was the current library location, which was previously the council chambers, and before that was a courtroom. So in 2020, the librarian found white powder on the table in one room. Do with that as you want, but anyways, could be the librarian.
Like in the White House.
I'm familiar with that. White powder.
Right.
Yeah.
This might not be quite such a haunting mystery, but anyway, she wiped it away and she found it there again the next day. So, and as well, there was a persistent smell in the room, resulting in her taking all the books off the shelves and looking for what found was a dead bat. And it took about 3 days for the dead bat smell to go away and the white powder to stop showing up. But the cause of the powder, it was never really determined. So was it, an employee or a coworker with a habit who wouldn't fess up? Who knows? But anyway. And then people would hear stuff like laughing in the back room and misty like fogs floating around. A lot of people witnessed this, and in groups too. So more than one person, multiple people seeing the same phenomenon at the same time. And everybody reports a hostile feeling as they come near the doll room. So apparently there's a room full of dolls, which in itself is a little scary. And one guy who took in a haunted house event said he felt a really strong need to keep his back to the wall, and he refused to go back there a second night. He was really creeped out in that doll room. Something was really sort of seems like there's a dark feeling. And again, if there's a skull of a murder victim in the basement, it's, it would be kind of a dark history, right? And every year at this museum, they hire summer students, and all of the students can't stand the doll room. So that particular room, like, nobody likes to go in there. It doesn't matter if they're being paid or not. It's not good. So a lot of people have
I am with the students. I'm not going in a doll room either. Dolls, I got to tell you, dolls creep me out.
Oh, we should
Absolutely.
drop you off at that doll. Isn't there that island with all the doll heads? So,
I've heard of that. The
Yeah.
other
In
one that creeps
Mexico.
me out is I am not going to the Clown Motel in Nevada either. The Clown Motel is just not my
Exactly.
thing. I
So-
mean, you could give me a demon or something else like that, and I'm okay. But no dolls, no clowns. It's just not my thing.
That's hilarious. Well, anyways, so a lot of people get their wedding photos taken at this because again, it's a beautiful building. It's a historic building, and one couple said that they've checked their wedding photos and found the face of a man looking over the bride's right shoulder, and there was a volunteer who was working in the jail room cleaning out boxes one time, and after emptying a whole bunch and making sure they're turned upside down, so completely empty, nothing could be hiding in there or whatever. And she put one on the floor, and a summer student came back and to check on her and said, are you keeping that knife? And she's like, what? Like, what the heck? And sure enough, there's a knife sticking in the box that was empty seconds before. Standing upright, stabbed her. So that's kind of cool because that's an actual physical object that turned out of nowhere. And there was a summer student in 2021. So these are really recent. Like they're still, it seems like this is a very active building. Like people are still seeing whatever going on in here right now. So anyways, the student came in and she was cleaning the room that used to house the judge's chambers. And when she returned right after, there was a lump on the bed that hadn't been there before. And when she checked, the umbrella that normally sits in the sitting room was untucked under the bed, like tucked in the bed. So it seems like this ghost is able to manipulate actual physical objects, which is kind of cool because that's pretty strong for a spirit, I would guess. And anyways, in 2019, there was like a whole bunch of incidents that year. And one visitor, that photo that you put, if you want to bring it back up, that photo is the picture of the exterior of the building, the night, and it shows what looks to be a person in front of the cameraman, but there was nobody there. So I don't know if you see.
This like shadow right there.
That's it. They're saying there was nobody standing in front of him. So that's kind of a famous picture of it because they figure it in. What do you think? Is that a ghost right there that we're looking at?
Sure.
Well,
I'm going with sure, Deborah.
Okay, we have evidence. That's it. We're done. Our job is done here. We've proven it.
it's as good as a lot of evidence I've seen.
Yeah. Well,
I know Scott is a little bit of a skeptic, so.
I mean, it's definitely, it could be a bush or something, but anyways, that's supposedly photographic evidence of something's going on in the building because it's been a span of a huge amount of years and tons of people seeing stuff and feeling dread and whatever. So kind of cool. I thought that was a pretty active building. I'd like to actually go and tour through it myself.
My new phone actually corrects images.
Oh.
So I'm gonna run that through real quick.
You're gonna debunk the whole first
We'll
about
see.
their ghost tours
I
here.
might not. I just want to. Okay, I'm gonna remaster
He's
that
gonna
photo.
he's
We'll
gonna
come
correct
back.
it. It's gonna clearly be a guy standing there.
It kind of looks. You know what it looks. Well, I guess those are the light posts right there, right?
I was just thinking at
Uh-huh.
first when I saw it, it looks just like a dark path with some bush kind of on the side or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be, but
This is like dating sites with all the filters and stuff, right? You can't really tell what's behind.
okay. I got an after.
Oh no. An app. Here it comes.
Okay, I'll send that over. Save as a copy. You keep going there, Deborah. I'll bring it up here in a minute.
Oh, well, that's all I have about that particular building. So
Let me
I know.
keep this one up too. Okay. Do you want to? Are you going on your next one, or do you want to go, Michael?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
hear what's
I can-
happening in Florida.
I can definitely go. Would it be okay if I shared a few images?
mhm.
Yes. Email them or just message them to me. That's fine.
Okay, gotcha. Do you want me to
Yeah.
do that now, or should we just go ahead and do some stories instead?
Go ahead and message them to me, and then I will work as quickly as I can to get those up and going.
Okay, well, maybe somebody else can go. I send these over to you. Would that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
I do have so I did want to talk about too. It's a quick one though, but that might work out. So there's Scott, if you want to throw up the other pictures I sent you both. So that's the Dean House. So this is actually a restaurant in Calgary. So it's really cool. You can go have lunch there or whatever now.
Do you want the before or after?
You can put both. I mean, it's the same house, but it just shows. So the house was moved onto site,
Oops, shoot.
and
Okay, give
So-
me 1 second to bring those up.
sure. So, anyways, this house that you're about to see, it's called the Dean House, and like I said, it's in Calgary, and it's now a restaurant, thriving little restaurant. And it was originally built in 1906 by Captain Richard Dean, and I guess tragedy would strike really quick as his wife died during the construction of this house. So it kind of started off with doom and gloom right from the very, wasn't even completed yet. And then bad luck and troubled times would revisit this property in 1971 in the form of a husband-wife murder-suicide. And I tried to dig a little bit more into that. I couldn't find particulars about it, but so that's 3 deaths in the house in a very quick time. And so after this, of course, everybody starts, reporting ghostly activity, and there's often full-bodied apparitions and strange noises, and feelings would be experienced by people who have visited and investigated. So lots of like things touching them and just creepy stuff or whatever. And I guess so allegedly there's a whole bunch of murders and a bunch of deaths, but really only those 3 were kind of confirmed. And the house was originally built in 1906, and it was moved in 1926 to its present location. And you can see like it's a nice restaurant now. It's like kind of cool, but people do still see stuff in there to this day. So according to a lot of the staff that work there, you'll often hear there's a disconnected phone, like an old-fashioned phone, and of course it's not even connected to anything, and it rings. And then often there'll be a strong smell of cigar smoke, especially after the phone rings. And there's a blood stain in the attic, and it changes in sizes and color, and people have like photographed that. Like it changes shape, changes, like gets really big, whatever. It's always kind of moving around. So that's pretty cool. And it sits just outside a closet, which will not remain locked despite the efforts of the staff. You cannot lock the closet. You lock it and then it's unlocked right away. It doesn't stay locked ever, and that blood stain's right outside. And they, like, staff are quoted as saying that they tried to lock the closet only to return and find the door open and the lock lying on the floor. So even if they like padlock it, it gets thrown right off. And any objects that are in that closet are found outside the closet a few meters away with the doors open. So I don't know if it's the original wife who died there, but obviously that closet area was probably the scene of one of those murders or the suicide. And all the activities kind of centered around there, although people do hear the phone ringing and have all that cool stuff going on. It's pretty cool building though, eh?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, so anyways, that's all I have about that one, but I thought it was pretty cool because it's one that you can easily go and have lunch and do a tour of or whatever. So
I'm ready to have lunch there.
right? Yeah, there's a
Absolutely.
few of them in Calgary. There's one in Red Deer I've actually been to that's haunted as well, and they let me go upstairs and kind of tour around and everything too. So I love those old buildings like that have a history like that, and if they let you poke around a little bit, it's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Excellent.
Okay, so before we get into Michael's stuff, I've got your picture remastered. Let's take a look and see if
What does
this
he look like? Casper.
is real or nonsense. Yeah.
Spoken by the skeptic.
Okay, here we go. Sharing screen, got them next to each other. So that's the original. Yeah, kind of, I don't know. What do you think? Kind of looks like a shadow, huh?
Oh, I can see that being
Like
a
he's
dark-
got floodlights behind him pointing towards it as well. But then yeah,
The
that's weird
shadows are
because
in the
the
wrong
shadows are
direction.
going that way too.
Yeah.
Right, because you have shadows coming off the lights on the front of the building for sure, which that does not look like. It would have to be a bright light behind him shooting towards the building,
how-
which there's no evidence of any of the,
How big are these walls?
It's a ghost, Scott. Give it up.
Okay, it's a ghost. You saw it here first,
Exactly.
folks. Okay. Oop, I keep doing that. And then which one did you want me to bring up first?
Well, let's start with the one that's a mirror. We see somebody standing in a mirror. It's a black and white photograph.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get to the email part.
So I was at a very old house in Cape Cod, and I like to do photography. And I was really hoping to find something of interest in this very old Cape Cod cottage. So, of course, we started with the basement. But it turns out that, oddly enough, they remodeled the basement. They literally must have lifted the house up and put in all new walls, all new brick. So it wasn't that old stone, that old crumbly basement you'd expect to find in an old cottage in Cape Cod. So there wasn't much scary there. But, walking around the house, they had a lot of antiques. So I was just taking some black and white photography of these old artifacts, a grandfather clock, an old mirror, very old implements that you would use in a fireplace, to stoke the fire, or, to get a ladle off the hook in the fire. So I took a photograph of this mirror, and I showed it to a coworker. I said, yeah, I call this La Bruja, which means the witch in Spanish. It was the owner of the house, and I like the way that she's kind of cut in half here. It kind of gives it a spooky look. But as Scott zooms in, there's something else in the picture that I didn't see before. And if you scroll toward the bottom of the frame a little bit, Scott, sorry there, you can see a ghostly arm in the image. It's very strange. It almost looks like a hand coming out from around her. And you can only see it when you zoom in. I didn't see it when I took the photograph. Naturally, it could be whatever. It could just be dust. But I think the image.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, right?
it's not dust, I could tell you that.
Yeah, I don't know what
I don't
it
think
is.
it's dust.
And I only discovered it after I said to one of my coworkers, I said, look at this cool picture I took. And he goes, well, what's that on the mirror? I said, what are you talking about? I said, look at that arm. I said, wow, that is so interesting. I did not see that when I took the photograph.
That is pretty
So,
cool.
yeah, I can't explain that one. It is just very odd.
Digital or photography?
It's all digital.
Okay.
Yeah. And the photograph was taken in black and white. So there's really no post-processing here. I didn't do anything to the image. That's the way I took the image. And that's how it looked. And I didn't see that arm, that weird artifact in there until recently when I was looking back through these pictures.
No, it's pretty cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's quite clear, actually. It's pretty neat. The picture is cool too, actually. It's
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because you've got the old curtains and the old wallpaper and this
Yeah.
very old mirror. And of course, mirrors are enchanted and haunted. It's, the looking glass into the other world. So when you look at all of these things put together, it just creates kind of a creepy image, I think.
That's a pretty good catch. I like it.
So the other thing I like to do photography of is cemeteries. I mean, who doesn't, right? But you know, we have a local cemetery here in an area called Tarpon Springs, which is where the famous sponge docks are. And this is an old cemetery from the early 1900s. It's the only remaining segregated cemetery in Pinellas County, which is a really big county here in Florida. And it's such a ramshackle graveyard. I mean, things are everywhere. There are unmarked graves everywhere. There are broken crypts, you know, so you could actually see down inside of it. You know, it was quite obvious that this was a cemetery serving disenfranchised people, because it, compared to the cemetery across the street, this is really just incredibly ramshackle. So,
Is it like a potter's field kind of thing?
yeah, you know what? For the most part, Bruce, all of the stones are flat, right? There's nothing vertical. There's only a few vertical stones. There's only a few statues. There's virtually no statues whatsoever. So when you go into this place, you drive through these gates, and yeah, this is it. You drive through these gates and you're basically driving on paths, right? You can barely tell if you're driving over graves or if you're driving on the correct pathway. But the cemetery is reputed to have people buried everywhere, and a lot of them are unmarked. So you probably really are driving over graves.
Yeah.
But I don't have a haunting in this cemetery, although I've been there at night, I've been there in the day. But what I can say about this experience is, because it's so random and everything is so low to the ground, and a lot of the crypts, like the ones you see in front of you, literally have handles on the lids, such that, you know, you could go in there and lift the lid off these crypts manually. It just has a very unsettling feeling. You know, you go in there and it's next, there was a big sporting event next door. You could see all the cars, and there were, you know, cheerleaders screaming and people playing football and whatnot, which really just added, that is the day that I took this photograph, just added to the creepiness. Almost like the early Halloween movies where, you know, Mike Myers is walking through all the kids doing trick or treat. I mean, that kind of normalcy lined up with the paranormal, I think makes it more unsettling. So
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Absolutely.
And
yeah,
is
so
that common to have like handles and where you could open? Is that normal, or because
I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
But there were literally handles on these crypts. And Scott, if you want to grab another photo, whichever one comes to mind, we can look at another photo of this very creepy cemetery called Rose Hill Cemetery in Tarpon Springs, Florida. It's reputed to be haunted. I don't know.
Oop, didn't catch this one.
This is an image of somebody's grave where
That
they've
is
adorned it
cool.
with lighting. You know, you can go to Lowe's and get those solar lights.
Right.
They surrounded this grave with solar lighting, and it's just so bizarre. I mean, just the look of it is kind of appealing, the light and the dark and the colors, but it's strange.
Is
You're
it
a great
newer?
photographer, Michael.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Is it
Yeah,
a
look-
newer grave
time.
or an older
Yeah,
one?
this one appears to be newer, and that's the other interesting thing
Okay.
about this, Bruce. This graveyard is still in use. So you have graves back from the 1900s, early 1900s. I think the earliest one they think is from like 1906. And then you have ones that are there very recently. It was one of the graves is very, you know, it kind of hit you. I guess the young woman that's buried there recently graduated from college or high school, so they had a banner over her grave that said "Happy Graduation," and you know, it was wow. You look at that and it becomes real to you what's going on here. But I thought this one was interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Suck if your daughter died for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you
And
ever stumbled across just a grave in the middle of nowhere? I've had this happen where it's just a cross, there's no name, but there's
right,
a grave and it's the middle of just, nowhere. Like it's not a cemetery, it's not near it. It's just like, what is the story? Who is this?
yeah, that's interesting. You know, some of the
We have
great,
several of those around Tombstone as well, up in the mining district. There is, in Tombstone, they tend to use a lot of rock cairns because the ground here is really tough. It's hard rock mining when they were mining silver. And I can tell you, no one is digging regular grave sites. It just doesn't happen. So they pile up rocks to make sure that your former loved ones are not carted off by coyotes and such. And there is a number, I've seen 3 myself out behind my house. I live up in the mining district, and there are rock cairns there, and it's just a cross, and you don't know there's no markings on who it was. And that the cemetery you're just talking about, Michael, reminds me a lot of there's Boot Hill Graveyard, which is the end all be all Wild West graveyard, and that stopped taking people in 1884, although some were eventually put in there. But the Tombstone New Cemetery, which started in 1884, is still in use today. So there are sections. There is a section that is definitely Pottersfield. There is a section that's war veterans, and all the way from 1884 till, there are people being buried there today. So,
wow, that's fascinating. One of the tombstones, I didn't send Scott the picture, but one of the tombstones here, I guess they did what they could to create a tombstone, and they obviously got wet cement in the form of a flat plaque, and they literally scrawled the name and the date into the wet cement, and that's somebody's tombstone. I think I
wow.
had a couple more images there, Scott. Do you want to bring
Yeah.
up another one?
I think I got one more.
Okay.
Let me double check through these real quick.
I,
Yeah,
for
there it
one, am
is.
interested to see them.
Yeah. I mean, you can see that it's so neglected and so dilapidated. And, when you think about the horror genre, dilapidated cemeteries are quintessentially spooky. So,
Absolutely.
I think there's
you're
something beautiful about them though, like the old cemeteries that are neglected. I don't know, like there's a beauty to it, and it does come through in photo. Like your photos are amazing.
no,
But
thank you. Yeah, this
That's wood?
no, that is actually concrete.
Oh, okay.
That is actually concrete. And if you guys will have me back, I'll bring photographs of the crypts with handles, because that's really weird.
Oh, you're stuck here now, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So what I wanted to do is, excuse me, share these photographs because it's kind of spooky, guys.
Florida, when we were in Jacksonville, we worked for U-Haul, so we were open 364 days out of the year. We were running the place. Employees wouldn't show up. We had one day off during a hurricane and Christmas, but we never made it up to that. I think it's St. Augustine, and that is the oldest city in America.
It is.
Have you ever been there?
I have been there, and I wanted to go on the ghost tour, but it was sold out. But yes, it is, when you walk through the old part of St. Augustine, I think it was established in the 1500s. Yes, it's very creepy, and it does give you a very uneasy feeling just walking through the old part of town. And there are battlements there and forts and prisons, and it's got a lot going on to see.
Yeah, we were an hour away, man. We just never
Yeah,
friggin' made it, but it would have been cool. I heard everybody told us to go check it out.
it's definitely worth seeing. It really is. It's a very interesting place. It's very
Yeah,
cool. It looks really cool. It looks really interesting.
it's
And
it's cool to know that it was like the first European settlement, like 300 years before America was even a thing.
right,
Like, that's pretty crazy.
That's some history.
absolutely. Yeah. Those are my stories.
Cool
Good.
picture. That's cool.
Thank you.
I'm a fan of going to graveyards too. I like to write, and it's peaceful. I spend many hours doing that actually.
My wife is a writer, and she used to go to cemeteries in Southern California, and that would where she would get her solitude for writing.
It is. There's
So
something very peaceful, especially the sort of abandoned ones like that, like just the old forgotten overrun. I love out in the country in the middle of nowhere with a little tiny community hall or church or whatever. Yeah, that's what I do.
That's awesome.
Well, that's where we're live streaming on our next adventure as soon as it gets dark here early enough. It's like the only shit haunted in Utah.
Well, we get a lot of Boot Hill Graveyard for many, many years just got wrecked. I mean, it got wrecked. There were souvenir hunters coming in and stealing grave markers. In the 1880s, most of the grave markers out here were wooden, and so they didn't really hold up well in the elements. And at one time, it had got turned into a dump for the city. And in the 20s, they were going to do Hell Dorado. They were going to bring this tourist celebration back to town. And they started to redo Boot Hill Graveyard. And they got old people that lived in town that were still alive and said, who do you remember? Where were they at? And it was quite a thing to put together. And at one time, Boot Hill was the second largest tourist attraction in the state of Arizona. The only bigger tourist attraction was that big ditch they have at the north of the state that they call the Grand Canyon. That was the second biggest. It was only second to that, so it was interesting. And now it looks about as good as it's ever going to look. And you were mentioning, Michael was mentioning about, segregation. They don't really have that at Boot Hill here. There's Chinese immigrants that had worked on railroads and then went around to areas like Tombstone that had big silver mining because they could get work here. And there's Native Americans buried there. There's a Jewish section that most people don't even see that's down the hill a little way that's kind of separated. You'll see Chinese guys buried right next to black individuals, buried next to white guys. It's kind of a strange thing for that time frame that, this is shortly, within 20 years or 15 years of the end of the Civil War. And the Wild West was wild at that time. Everyone was coming here because you had the opportunities to do things in the West that you weren't able to do in the South or in the North. So it's a very interesting place.
Well, that's kind of cool. What kind of person? I mean, that's some karma, stealing stuff from graves.
Oh my God.
Like,
right? Yeah, that's you know what? You wouldn't catch me stealing anything out of a graveyard.
Right? Yeah, there's something. Yeah. Cool. Well,
Scott, you don't have anything for us?
I thought we were gonna get past me this week. Okay, I got a short one about Brigham Young. So these are all places we'll try to live stream when it's my turn to pick the topic. Share the screen here. So this is Brigham Young, Brigham Many's house. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the LDS faith, but I live kind of where they settled down.
Oh, yeah.
So this
We have a big
house-
Mormon town near Tombstone, about 11 miles from Tombstone, called St. David. That is a big LDS. Well, it's not big.
They have the FLDS down there, right? Like that's
Yeah.
probably the FLDS because they kicked them out of Utah. They went to Colorado for a little bit and had to mosey down a little further south. But so this was actually Brigham Young's forest farmhouse. So they had a drawing of this thing when it was back in 1847 when it was built for him. And it still does not look like it was anywhere near a forest. And downtown Salt Lake is more kind of like a prairie-ish area, desert,
Right.
I have no idea why it's called the forest house, but I mean, this one's pretty typical. There's a couple unexplained noises and footsteps through the house. But the thing that makes this one stand out the most, and I'm pretty sure you can visit this one, that's why I brought it up, is people say that they see Brigham Young himself in this house. So
Interesting.
that is true. I don't think he got his own planet. But
What I didn't, that the geometry of that building is very odd.
I can bring it back up here.
It looks like a little
First-
dollhouse.
The symmetry is odd, but then when you just look at the proportions of the gables, I mean, it just, to my eye, the building itself is unsettling.
We do get snow here, so yeah, that's like
Yeah,
So do we.
I get that, but it just the visual appearance of this place, it looks spooky just as is, without any ghost involvement.
1847. I mean, Utah is not that old either. I'm originally from California. Most of that stuff's not old either, but he passed this down throughout his family for a while, but now I'm pretty sure it is some sort of like tourist destination thing going on.
So it's not just abandoned. There's somebody like running tours out of there, or it's
Yeah, I'm pretty sure from what I gathered on the internet, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be live streaming out of Brigham Young's house there.
nice.
His forest house that's not in the forest. So this is like pretty close to downtown nowadays.
I was going to say you were talking about being from California. There's an unsettling house in California called the Winchester Mystery House.
Right,
I
right.
I'm sure you guys have all heard of that. That is the most
Yeah.
unsettling place ever. She believed as long as she kept building, she was not going to die.
Have you
And
been in
there's
it?
I haven't, but I had a bunch of friends that went up there and they said, you just see staircases that go up into the ceiling for no reason. You'll open a door and there's just a wall on the other side of it. According to them, it's quite easy to get lost. You want to stay with your tour group and they like to keep an eye on you because people will get lost and they got to go around and find them. It's a crazy thing.
That'd be an annoying job going around getting the tourists at the end of the days that are like wandering around and locked in closets and stuff.
Right. They're like, we got to find these guys.
You're from California as well, too, aren't you?
I am. Well, I was born in Arizona, but I grew up back when California was still nice, back in the 70s and 80s, because I'm older than any of you guys, I'm sure. But yeah, I lived in the little bit east of Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley. So
Yeah, I was born in Arizona as well. Right next to or south of, I don't remember the town, but it was in between Phoenix and Prescott. That's where my parents and my brothers and sisters live. But And I grew up in Lancaster. You gotta know where Lancaster is, right?
I know exactly where it is. Matter of fact, when you say Prescott is interesting because one of the only two authentic Doc Holliday photographs is from Prescott.
Prescott's a cool little hippie town, man. They got a lot of, I mean, back when it was cheap, there were a lot of like earth ships and adobe houses, and it was like a real cool little
Yes.
hippie community. But yeah, shit gets bought.
Very cool.
Tides change, corporations come in. Next
That
one I
happens.
got here is this one I really want to go to, and this one is a little bit more haunted. So hopefully maybe around Halloween, I want to hit this one up, live stream, maybe even put the show a little later at night. But this is the Rio Grande Depot.
Well, that's
So,
beautiful.
yeah, no, there's actually a train mall like kind of next to this that when I do my videos, I tried to go and record there. There's like no one at this train mall. But this was the first train station, like the big train station in downtown Salt Lake. It was the transportation hub of the whole goddamn state. And it was opened in 1910. And the sightings in this place don't just go to like, you know, ghost hunters and like everyday Joes. The security guards have been reporting sightings in this place forever. Like the first security guard to report something happening in here, like a paranormal case, was in 1947.
Nice.
So, you know, you hear the noises and the footsteps like every other place, and then there's cold spots and apparitions. But this one had a pretty cool little story. The most popular apparition is the Lady in Purple. Now, have either or any of you guys ever heard of a Lady in Purple?
No, we have a lady in red and a lady in white in Tombstone, but never a lady in purple.
It's
They're always in
it's always a lady in white. And her backstory is even a little different too, this Lady in Purple. So the story goes that she was standing at the train station with her fiance, and they got into a huge argument. And she got pissed off and threw a ring. And then after she calmed down, she went and looked for a ring, and it was right on the fucking tracks. So she ran out to the tracks, and then
She got hit by a
kablamo,
train.
done deal. She instantly dead. So yeah, that's just when people started seeing her. That security guard saw her in 47, and they're saying that there are actual claims that date back prior to the security guard, but like the security guards is the first documented, and this is all hearsay on different websites. I didn't see any documentation of a security guard, but she's said to be a beautiful lady with dark hair. She's wearing the purple dress, and she has a look of despair in her face. And
Well, she got hit by a train.
yeah, but they see her all over too. It's not just the tracks.
Oh.
It's supposed to be all over the train station. So
She lost
hopefully,
her jewelry. That's what's upsetting.
I was going to say she lost her jewelry. She got in an argument with her probably soon to be husband, and then she got hit by a train. I'd look despair too.
Bad day.
Bad
Yeah.
day.
so hopefully I can get some ghost hunters, and then, you know, we'll do a live stream podcast and see if they can find anything for us.
Be cool.
Try it out.
You know what building I would love to get into? Like, what's your, like, I'll ask you guys after, what's your number one building if you could get in and spend a night and tour around? Because I would love to get into the Cecil Hotel. There's just been so much stuff happen there
Oh, dude,
that
there's
it
like,
would be be dark. It'd be dark energy, I'm sure. But there's
isn't
so
the
many
Cecil
deaths in that
Hotel? still open? Like, aren't they housing the homeless in there right now, still to this
I don't
day?
know what they're doing. It's a private, like part of it was bought by a private individual.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can't access the whole thing anymore. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there's just, I don't know if you saw that documentary about the girl from Vancouver who went missing, but there's been so many deaths in there and serial killers hanging out there. And I mean, yeah, it's just that's a crazy building with some history.
That is right next to Skid Row, dude.
Yeah.
And it's scary for that reason too. But that's what's so fascinating about it too, is that they had sort of a normal hotel attached to like that demographic, and they were sort of mingling in the same building. It's very interesting. But what about you
Is
guys?
that-
Where would you go if you could go anywhere? Like what building to get into for a night? Where would you go?
Real quick, the Cecil, is that the one where the Asian girl was in the
Water.
elevator?
Yeah.
And
water
they end up
tower.
finding her in the water thing on the top, and people were saying their water was, smelling and
Yeah.
was running like not a clear color. That's
Exactly.
creepy.
Yeah.
Sounds
That's
like
creepy.
LA.
But there are so many deaths, and
Exactly.
Richard Ramirez, the serial killer, he lived there for a while, and he would come in with no shirt on, covered in blood, and the front desk people wouldn't even bat an eye because this place was so crazy and there was just so much stuff going on. That wasn't
I think
even
that-
alarming. So like what was like just the history is crazy in there.
I think Covered by Blood in LA is not necessarily all that unusual.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to
Especially there,
the
dude.
Edinburgh tunnels.
In Scotland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That would be awesome.
It's the home of my ancestors from
Ah.
Bonnie, Scotland, lad.
So they'll be
Nicely
friendlier
done.
to you.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably not.
What about you, Michael? Where would you go if you could get access to any place? Where would you go?
I'm not necessarily a big fan of the ghost shows, but I always enjoy when they go into an old sanitarium.
Oh yeah.
That might be interesting.
Maybe a hotel in Tahiti. I've heard there's some hauntings there. I'd love to go check out.
Indeed.
I don't like haunted shit, dude.
That's why we
Skatopia.
send you in the field on all the field trips. You're the one going there. So-
Yeah, the only one we've done, we tried to get into Ted Bundy's cellar, but there was somebody like squatting on the land, so we made it up to Ted Bundy's cave.
What?
And however the hell he dragged a woman up that cave is beyond me, because it's a hell of a hike up there.
Wow.
Creepy and narrow, like a small
is
little space.
creepy.
Pretty crappy to think she was in there, but yeah.
The cellar would have been cool though, dude, because it went pretty deep. I mean, it looked pretty. I showed you guys the pictures. It looked pretty dope.
Yeah, well, we don't have a lot of cellars in this area, but I'll tell you what we got a lot of mine shafts, and it
Oh.
was not uncommon. Well, first of all, deaths by mining mishap were quite common, but premature blasts of powder, the kind of things where there's a mining blast and it happens too early and you don't even know you're gone. You just die right away. And really close to my house, I was hiking and I found this big hole in the ground. And I'm like, God, I wonder what it looks like a mine shaft. And I picked up a rock that was fairly heavy in my hand. And I just dropped it to hear how deep it was. And I dropped it and I'm listening and I'm listening and I'm listening. And then I hear this, like just the softest puh down in the bottom. And I was talking to one of the mining history guys in town. He goes, oh yeah, that shaft's 800 feet deep.
Wow.
And there were no rails around it, no fencing around it, nothing. I'm like, oh, you got to watch where you
That's a
walk up
tad
here,
dangerous.
Wow.
or I
Wow.
will be haunting people, and I'll do different kinds of things. Like I'll write in blood on your wall, but it'll be positive messages, like "Have a great day."
Well, it sounds like you're going on some field trips, buddy.
Yeah.
We gotta get you out there with your phone and get into some of these mines. That'd be dope.
That's
Yeah,
like,
there's a
I don't
couple
know
of
why
mines
that
in-
made me think of Dolores Claiborne, or was it Dolores Claiborne where she jumps over the well or whatever and her husband stumbles into the, like, you could do that really easily right there.
Oh, yeah, really easily. Yeah, really easily. If you look at it on satellite, you can see quite a few mines. There are some that are closer to town that have coverings over them, but when you get back up in the back area up here, there's a lot of stuff that you don't want to fall into.
At your own risk. You shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I had an event happen one time where I got stuck by a mine, and you don't want to be up there. If you're in a mine, that's a real problem because you get no cell signal at all. It's like being in an elevator times 10.
That'd be terrifying.
As you can see, it's past sunset now. The sun, you notice I've been getting darker
Right.
as the
you
show
have
went
been.
on. It kind of looks like I've gotten a tan as we've gone along.
So I know it's getting late, but what is your guys's the most paranormal thing you've ever seen?
Michael,
Well,
let's hear yours first.
I guess so it all started when I was a child, right? That's how all these stories go. But in all seriousness, the most paranormal, and by that I will define it as unexplainable. In my childhood bedroom, wasn't even dark. Doors open, hall lights on. There's enough light coming in, and I had these closet doors right at the foot of my bed. They were somewhat shiny, just by the way they were lacquered. And there were these white, ghostly images moving all across these closet doors. And I looked up at the window behind me, no curtains moving, no light coming in. I cannot explain what I saw. I cannot explain what was there or why it was there. So that is one. And I would also point to some of the lucid dreams that I've had, which cannot be fully explained by any rational thought at all. Just some really strange, otherworldly interactions. And yeah, those left me questioning a lot of things.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Well, I'll
thank
tell you guys one that I probably mentioned to you guys before, but I was about 16 years old. I was in Fullerton, California. My brother was having a party, just a little 2-bedroom apartment, the only one at the top of the stairs. I'm 16. I'm hot to trot for anything that looks female. And I'm going up to this party, and this girl passed me on the stairs. I had told you guys about this before, I think, where it wasn't like an apparition. It just looked like a girl walking down the stairs. Now, granted, she had the whole, white dress and blonde hair thing, but she walked by me, and I immediately went into the party because I'm like, oh my God, I got to find out who this girl is. And there's like maybe 15 people in the house, and I'm asking people who the girl was, and everyone's like, we didn't see her, we didn't see her, we didn't see her. I'm like, you had to have seen her. You must have seen this girl. And so I'm checking in, no one's seen her. And about 5 minutes later, a couple of my friends show up at this party, and they come in, they're like, oh my God, who was that girl? I'm like, oh, did you see her down by the parking lot? And they're like, no, she just walked out the door. I'm like, no, she did not just walk out the door, because I would have seen her if she was back in here. And then my brother's kind of eclectic girlfriend at the time, who used to read a lot of tarot cards, and her name was not Linda, it was Lenda. And she was like, oh, that's Karen. I can't even remember the name it was, but oh, that's Karen. She died in the 50s. And I'm like, no, this was a real person. And she goes, no. She goes, people see her all the time. And apparently it was one of these like residual things, does the same thing every time. leaves the apartment, walks down the stairs, and that's the only time people see her, never makes any noise. I mean, and I didn't bump into her or anything. She just walked by me on the stairs. But that was really the thing that kicked off my interest in the paranormal.
I
Wow.
find it interesting that all the guys were like gaga over her, and she's not even,
Right.
she's
Well,
not
and
available.
she's not even there. But you know what? And I can honestly say, and people are like, well, what were you on drugs? And I'm like, well, you know what? I was probably stoned. I mean, this was probably in the 70s for me, and I probably was stoned, but I'm telling you, back then, when I saw a good looking girl, I was all about it. So I was like, oh my God. But according to everybody else, nobody else, she wasn't in the apartment. And I saw the door open and her come down, and my friend saw that same thing as well. And, that kicked it off for me.
That's a great story, Bruce.
Now, how many of you believe in Frogman? We
Frogman?
need at least,
Frogman?
This is your
One of
ultimate
you-
test here.
we need at least one of you to believe in Frogman, living dinosaurs, and spectrophilia.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Tombstone has a story about the Tombstone Thunderbird, which was described, supposedly got shot down, and it looked, the description of it was it had like a 30-foot wingspan, and it had like bat type wings, and it had a face kind of like an alligator. And
We had the
when you hear-
picture.
yeah, well, and that's not the actual picture, but it's a picture that they always use for that, because they don't have the actual picture. And then a guy at an old Eldorado celebration said that the newspaper got the story all wrong. They did, because they said he shot it down and he cut a piece of the wing off to bring it to Tombstone to get looked at. And the guy's like, that never happened. They go, we tried to shoot it down, but we were unable. The horses were completely spooked by it. We couldn't pursue it. I got bucked off my horse and we never killed it. But, and of course you got Nessie. Nessie looks like a plesiosaur to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, when he finally does get back on the show one of these days.
He's our cryptid
Oh, okay.
believer. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
he
our cryptid
believes
guy, expert.
You tell him you saw a alien in your bathroom, he's gonna believe you. Hands down, no questions. He believes it all.
Well, there was a movie called Cowboys and Aliens once, and we always look at that around Tombstone and go, that would be here. I mean, people in Tombstone are pretty well armed. They'd for sure try and go up against aliens. There's no doubt about it.
What's your take on aliens? Because there's a lot of stuff coming out right now about, leaked documents and whatever, whistleblowers and all this stuff. So are you believers, non-believers? What do you think?
Michael?
I had actually just had a conversation about this recently. What I'm struggling with,
I'm liking this.
yeah, what I'm struggling with here is we have technology now that can make anything look real, right?
Absolutely.
So my skepticism is kind of rising to meet some of the purported evidence. I'm not 100% sold that what we're seeing is real. I've not ruled out that maybe this is some type of disinformation campaign. I don't know what the purpose of it is, but I think that needs to be considered. And this is really all disappointing to me because I'm kind of like that old show, I Want to Believe, right? I want to believe in the UFOs and that there's something.
You're Mulder.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's exactly it. But I don't know. When I looked at the images of the fighter jets chasing the orbs, yes, it looked real, but I think you also have to ask the question, why now? What is it now? You know, we've gone through this before. We've had the UFO conference at the press center, the press club in downtown DC, like 10 years ago. We've already had all the senators and everyone talking about it. Why are we doing this again? Why now? I don't know. I want to believe, but I'm kind of becoming increasingly skeptical of it.
Well, I
Project
gotta
Blue
tell
Beam
you,
through the chemtrails.
yeah, I don't know about the whole chemtrails thing. I got very interested for a long time in the whole ancient aliens thing, and I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I watched, it was a National Geographic show, and they had gone back in the Congo, and they had taken this interpreter with them. It was a couple of these white guys with this one like native interpreter, and they flew into the backcountry to these people that have never had any exposure to anything anywhere. And, you know, when the natives met these guys, they were just taken aback. It's like, first, they're white. They've never seen a white person in their entire life, and they flew in. So they go back like a year later, and the natives have constructed a facsimile of the Cessna plane out of sticks, and they're praying to it because they didn't understand what they had seen. I am, probably ridiculously on board with the whole UFO thing. I don't think it's a recent phenomenon. I think it's been going on a long time. I think that governments are very good at hiding whatever they want to hide. I would agree with Michael. It's kind of weird that it's, coming out. But, with the kind of technologies we have now, everybody in the world practically has a cell phone. It's like people are getting video of weird stuff in the sky all the time that, back in the 50s, unless you happen to have your little Brownie Fiesta camera with you, you weren't going to catch anything. And so in the last, say 2 decades, from 2000 to now, the amount of people seeing things, I don't know if the amount has actually increased or just there's been more ability to take pictures. Now every kid walking down the street's got a phone with them. So, it's kind of like if we look back 40, 50 years and we were talking about paranormal, there wouldn't be nearly as much evidence because people just weren't taking pictures of everything. And we didn't have guys like Michael going into the cemeteries to shoot pictures of everything because, back then film costs money and developing costs money. And you know what? Digital doesn't cost money. There's no film. Right. You get the image right away. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for belief in that. I'm one of those people. Do I know if they've been here? No. Are there aliens? You look at the amount of stars there are, and for sure there's life other places. For sure there is. It would be ridiculous for there not to be. Now, have they gotten here? I don't know. But I'm like Mulder. I want to believe. So.
Well, me too. And I love the idea of like ancient, like they've been around ancient civilizations and some of the structures and evidence, I think they've been here forever. What the government's like leaking out and causing people to argue and whatever, that's distracting us from some other thing that they're doing. Who knows what? But
100%. 100% they do that.
Plan, right? So
I do find the ancient alien or the ancient the ancient alien theory. I do find some of that compelling. Bruce, you brought that up.
So interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I would have trouble discounting all of that. And to be sure, I'm kind of going off what Deborah just said. It's not that I discount the possibility. I guess the current narrative is what I'm taking objection to. Mm-hmm. But I'm with, Deborah and Bruce on this. I think there's something there, and I think it's worth looking at. But that has to be separated from the current narrative, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that
100%.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did a
it's always
video.
good. Aliens are always a good way to hide something else that's happening. It's like, oh, hey,
Right.
we got all
Like,
this problem going on with the government. It's like, by the way, we've got alien proof. Oh, really?
Right.
We've all got
Or
such short
Sam
attention
Bankman
span.
Fried getting all of his charges dropped the exact same day they had
Well,
those,
I look at it differently. Maybe Lockheed Martin did come up with something that's absolutely so out of this world. And like you said, Bruce, everyone has a cell phone. Someone's going to get an image of it. Let's get ahead of the story and say it's from somewhere else.
but the
Skunk
thing
works,
about
baby.
it is, yeah, I
Right.
mean that's where I lived in Lancaster. But the thing about the David Fravor shit is that was in 2004. Like there weren't cell phones everywhere at that time, but it was picked up on multiple things. So is it like I would believe it's more likely a skunk works like drone technology myself.
Could be.
Why
Could
would the
be.
government come out and tell us that like what does that have to do? Why would they hide it first off? And then why would they decide to tell us?
I think they would hide it originally because of the possibility of panic. I mean, you're talking a time frame when it's like Orson Welles' War of the Worlds was making people try and commit suicide, and it was a flippin' radio show.
But it's
I
out
mean,
of their control, right? Like
I
those
feel more
aliens
like
could have
they-
came down.
I feel like they release it to create arguments and panic and just I feel like that's purpose. Like they do that on purpose.
Well, that's why it sounds more like diversion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
I think I'm kind of with all of you on it. It's diversion, but I don't think it's for necessarily insidious reasons. I think it's much more practical. I think maybe if you look at something like Roswell, they probably changed the story because they realized that they could capitalize on the technology in more when it was remaining clandestine than when it was out in the open.
I could see them hiding something like the B-22 bomber. Like,
Well, and of course,
they back engineer it or whatever, right? Until they figure out what it is. Everybody wants to be the only ones to have it.
if we look at what Michael just said, in order to be able to backwards engineer something, there has to be something to backwards engineer. So it's like, oh, we needed to cover it up because we want to work on it. Well, what are you working on? It's like, there's a story of something that landed in Roswell or crashed in Roswell. And it's like, if there, suddenly there's a big secrecy thing on it because they want to work on it. If it was a weather balloon, there's nothing to work on.
Right.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with the whole alien thing because the earth is flat. There is no space.
Oh my God.
And Deborah,
is it held up by a turtle?
He finally got back to me. I am going on the biggest flat earth podcast in the world, September 5th.
Yeah, oh no.
I got some questions. This is going to be fun.
Are you going to be like a cat in a box full of mice here?
Oh, I've been studying up. I have questions. Dude, I'm telling you, you start listening to like the real good flat earthers and they start making sense and you start questioning yourself and it's like, whoa, wait a minute here. Don't get
time to
too
put the
far
beer
in.
down at that point. Put the beer down. It starts making sense.
Oh man, they start pulling out some math and stuff and I am going on and I'm going to try to figure out how this works.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
But,
the beauty
yeah.
of being a rational being is we can rationalize anything.
Hey, I would look forward to hearing that podcast.
Yeah, well,
why not?
it's the biggest, it's the Flat Earth Files. I mean, he's millions of downloads. This guy's huge. There's a lot of people to believe.
Nice.
Tell you, when Trump got elected, the world went crazy than normal.
Well, the best part is actually listening to everybody's, I mean, whether you agree or you don't agree or whatever, but it's I mean, it's awesome just hearing everybody's opinions and why they believe the things that they're talking about.
He brings some facts, dude. I'm telling you, like if you just listen to his first couple episodes, you're like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, why is that like that?
Makes you question things.
Yeah, no, it's pretty
So
nuts.
one thing to remember, it's always easier to make people question than to prove your point.
Yeah,
I-
that's true.
I personally believe the world's a simulation, so he's not gonna fool me.
Yeah, you know what?
He's got his work cut out with Scott there, so good luck to him.
Yeah, that's the whole world's a simulation thing is, we talk about technology. That's possibility. You never know. We're all in the Matrix right now. I'm looking for Neo right now, but he's in all the John Wick movies, so I can't find him.
Well, God is the creator, right? Or is he the programmer?
Yeah, well,
Man. Fourth
Or is
Depends
God
on which
within
movie you
all of
watch.
us, and we're all the creators.
Yeah, well, I mean, going on that, Deborah, I mean, it is a simulation, right? Because our minds assemble the data that we take in through our sensory systems, and we construct it into something that is usable for our own
Well, and you
survival.
talked about a little bit earlier, Michael, when you were talking about dreams.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Some dreams that I'm sure we've all had are inexplicable. I've had dreams of fabulous architecture or amazing symphonies. I can't draw that stuff. I can't write that music. How is my mind able to auto-generate these things and present it to me? It was just amazing. I mean, where does this come from?
And lucid dreaming, projecting, astral travel. But even in deep meditation, I mean, you connect to, it is a greater consciousness of some sort. You can't, Scott's going to be like, oh my good God. But there's
No, it's the
a greater
programmer.
consciousness, and you can download information that shouldn't be available to you, but you can just access it. So it's such a fascinating world.
Do you take
I feel so
anything?
bad now because I dream more like, me and the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and I can't make that happen either. So that's completely out of my realm.
You haven't manifested that quite yet. You wake up. And
Not yet. Still working on it.
Well, I'm sure the Cardinals are very proud of you, buddy.
You know what? I'm still a Rams guy. Even after they went to St. Louis and then came back, I'm still a Rams guy. But I'm really a Chicago Bears guy, so go figure.
Do you take anything to lucid dream, or is it just natural lucid dreaming?
Who?
Is that for me,
Yes.
Michael? No, I don't take anything. I just once in a while I have these incredible lucid dreams, and some of them I just can't explain.
Have you ever?
He says, I thought those were regular mushrooms on my salad
That's right.
for dinner.
Robbers
But I
has
had
a
some
special
great
menu.
dreams afterwards. I wasn't even asleep.
Have you looked into the London DMT mapping studies at all?
I've heard
No.
about it. I've never looked at it in seriousness.
That's pretty interesting. You should.
Yeah.
They have one in Colorado. As soon
Oh.
as the podcast starts making money,
You're in.
that's where I'll be streaming from. I want to map the
Excellent.
other plane.
I'm very interested in that experience. If you actually do that, I really do want to hear about it.
Yeah, no, I'm not the greatest hallucinogenic person, more of a downer guy myself, but I would be interested.
Well, I think what's most interesting about that whole thing is they say when multiple people are engaged in this activity at the same time, they all start having the same dream. How is that possible?
Yeah, no. And
I mean-
like they're literally mapping the area. Like they have a YouTube channel. It's cool to
Okay.
check in every once in a while. But
I'll
yeah,
definitely look
no,
for
it's
that.
pretty interesting stuff. Like if there's any
Oh,
proof
cool.
of paranormal, that's definitely I mean, I don't know how you would explain that, you know,
Right.
so we can actually talk to a ghost. I don't.
You can talk to anyone you like in any dimension.
Yeah. That's
Well, and
right.
if you're doing hallucinogens, you can literally talk to anyone you want.
That's
You
right.
have a really good conversation with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You're really talking to a department store mannequin, but you know.
Yeah, DMT is a different deal, though. I've never done it. I would love to. A lot of my friends have done it. I want to try it
Interesting.
just to see if it is kind of in that supernatural realm outside of a hallucinatory. You know, there's a difference between hallucinating and like entering a different realm.
Absolutely. Very cool.
But yeah, that was a cool first episode. You got anything else, Deborah? Anybody else?
No, that was some good conversation, guys.
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Had an awesome time.
who's picking next? I picked this one. So
Yeah, so this is how we do things. Each week we each take a turn picking the topic for next week, and then we all just do a little research and bring our bit. So why don't you guys jump in and pick a topic for us?
and first off, we've already done Frogman, Dogman.
Yeah.
What was the other? We did another man.
Slender Man.
No,
For some
never
reason,
done Slender.
Jeremy didn't want to do Slender Man.
That's a creepy thing right
That
there.
is
Slender
creepy.
Man is very creepy.
That's
I don't
creepy.
know if it's real, but it's creepy.
Creepy pasta. That's why he thinks it's not real. He thinks it's creepy pasta.
Yeah, I tried to bring it in one time, didn't I?
He didn't bring up chupacabras or anything?
Oh yes, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured you would. Yeah, chupacabras are a thing.
But I mean, you guys will bring a new perspective to it anyway. So pick anything. I mean, honestly, we can always.
Besides Frogman, we did Frogman,
That-
and
that
at the
one
end
was
of that,
so-
Jeremy didn't even believe in Frogman anymore, dude.
Oh,
There were
really?
like 2 stories on Frogman, and that is dead.
Frogmen actually exist, though. I mean, you know that, right? The
Oh,
Navy's full of them.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
we this was when we first started, and we all heavily researched, and like even he was down to yeah, it was probably an iguana that escaped from somebody's house.
That's awesome. I don't know. You got anything, Michael? I wasn't thinking that we were. Now I feel like we're having a
This
test.
is your test here. This is your test. You stay on the show or not? You gotta.
This is how we
I don't
feel
have
every
anything.
week. It's my turn. What the
I know.
You know what? I mean, we just broached the subject a little today, but I like the ancient aliens thing.
Okay.
I'd be down. Yeah.
That
love
sounds
it.
good.
So some
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Sumerian stuff.
Okay. I'm in on that.
Hebrew coming down. Sounds like
Yeah.
a plan next week.
Hell yeah.
All right, folks, you heard it. There you go. You better be here next Sunday, same time.
Same
Okay.
time, same bat channel.
Excellent.
Hey, I gotta tell you guys one thing. I don't know if you ever heard this. So Batman and Doc Holliday, right, have 1 degree of separation between them. And with 2 different people, which is strange. So Doc Holliday was played by Val Kilmer in the movie Tombstone. But Val Kilmer also played Batman. And then Adam West, who played Batman on TV, also played Doc Holliday on TV. So there you go.
Ah,
You
Okay.
just mentioned my 2 least favorite Batmans, sir.
Well,
I get it.
what can you say?
Yeah.
Val Kilmer was a great Doc Holliday, though.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, he was. No, I agree.
You didn't
Adam-
see it?
I didn't see. I saw his Batman.
Oh, yeah. Well, dude, the Batman's nowhere near as good as the Doc Holliday. I can tell you that.
I did like
He-
Adam West's shark repellent. His bat
He-
shark repellent.
Great. What
That
about the
was fun.
Batusi? The Batusi.
Adam West.
I'm really showing my age now. I remember when that was on TV, like new episodes. So there you go.
Yep.